Hi guys, today I'm reviewing the RF 35mm f1.8 macro lens from Canon. This is one of their cheapest RF lenses, coming in at $499 or £489 in the UK. So at this price point it could be one of the most useful and best value lenses currently available for the system. As an RF lens, it's only compatible with Canon's EOS R series cameras and not their DSLRs or mirrorless M series crop sensor cameras. And although this lens has been out since 2018, I wanted to really test it out by putting it on my Canon R5 to see how sharp it really is. So let's find out. So as I said, this is a 35mm full frame lens, meaning that it's great for everything from portraits to travel, street photography, and even documentary photography and filmmaking. This lens gives you a nice wide angle but with a good emphasis on your subject. It has a nice bright aperture of f1.8, allowing you to shoot in low light and get nicely out of focus backgrounds too. It also features a 1:2 ratio macro ability, which, although less than what you would see on a dedicated macro lens, combined with a close minimum focusing distance of 17 centimeters or 0.56 feet, it can bring you really close to your subjects and create some really fun imaging effects without the need for a dedicated macro lens. It's relatively small and light too, at just over 300 grams, and features a 52mm filter thread size. The lens also features Canon's customizable control ring, which is a feature not found on all of their lower end budget lens options. So that's really nice to have, allowing you to adjust settings on the fly such as ISO, white balance, shutter speed and aperture. It even has image stabilization built in, which is great to see at this price point. And here's a video clip of the lens with image stabilization off and now turned on. As you can see, it makes quite a difference, giving you smoother handheld video footage and sharper images with the ability to shoot at slower shutter speeds in stills mode. So we can see this has got a fantastic list of features for the price point, but what's the quality like? Well, as a mid-range Canon lens, the body of the lens is mainly plastic with a metal lens mount, which unfortunately doesn't have a weather sealing gasket, so that's something to be aware of. Overall, the lens feels quite good in the hand, particularly given its price point. It also features a number of buttons on the lens, an AF MF button, stabilizer on off switch, and as I said, the control ring at the front and a larger focus ring behind it, allowing you to manually focus. The focus ring turns fairly smoothly, although it's not great, and it's electronically coupled to the focus motor, which works okay but responds quite slowly and sluggishly and has a long throw when in manual focus. You'll also notice that the lens barrel moves in and out when you are focusing. The STM autofocus motor is quite fast and efficient, as you can see in these screen recordings when you're shooting in stills mode, but it is quite a noisy motor, as you can hear from these clips. You'd think this noise would be a problem when shooting in video mode, but Canon have been quite clever here. If you're shooting with your camera in video mode, the autofocus of the lens slows down to allow for a smoother focus pull and also to reduce noise. And actually the noise is barely audible in video mode, so it is definitely usable for video makers. However, you should also be aware that if you are going to use this lens for video, it does exhibit some focus breathing, zooming in as you focus. There's also no lens hood included with the lens, but this can be bought for an extra £30 or dollars. Overall, for the money, the lens works really well and the build quality is good enough. Moving on to image quality now. As I said, I really wanted to test this out on my Canon EOS R5 to see if it could cope with that high 45 megapixel count. In the center of the image at f1.8, the lens is nice and sharp, although contrast could be a bit better. As you move out to the corners, sharpness is quite good, but it does drop off a little bit and you start to get some ghosting. If you stop the lens down to f2.8, sharpness and contrast both improve, and once you get down to f4, it's much better. So overall, a pretty good result. It stays this sharp down to f16, where we start to see a little bit of softening due to diffraction, and this lens will stop down to f22, where unfortunately it becomes very soft. So I'd avoid using this lens at f22 or even below f16. So overall on sharpness, I would say, again, at this price point, I'm quite impressed, and it is good enough for most people. The lens does exhibit some fairly noticeable distortion and vignetting at f1.8, but again, as you can see from these images, as you stop down to f2.8, this starts to become less noticeable, but you will want to ensure that in-camera corrections are turned on and use your editing software to ensure that the images look as good as they can. As I said earlier, this lens has a macro function with a 1:2 ratio, so let's look at the close-up image quality. As you can see from these images of some coins that I shot, image quality and sharpness in the center of the image, again at f1.8, is pretty good, but as you move out to the edge of the image, it starts to drop off. Again, once you stop down to f2.8, the sharpness improves both in the center and particularly out at the corners of the image. When you point this lens at the sun or bright lights at night, you'll also notice there's some fairly noticeable flaring and it's green in color. Nothing too bad though. You'll also notice if you're shooting in the dark with this lens that there may be some coma smearing, particularly wide open at f1.8. Once again, as you stop the lens down, this gradually disappears by around f4. I've enjoyed trying the macro functionality of this lens, and I've combined it with the focus bracketing feature that's inbuilt in the Canon R5 and some of the other R series cameras, and I made a video on this last week, so check that out if you haven't already. But as you can see from this shot of these rings, it works really well. I think the quality is pretty good for most situations. This lens can get you some really nice subject separation at f1.8, and the 9 rounded aperture blades allow for some quite good quality autofocus backgrounds. Sometimes more complex backgrounds can get slightly jumbled and messy. Something else that I've noticed when this lens is wide open is that you start to see some longitudinal chromatic aberration, and in particular it exhibits a pink coloration before the focus plane and a green coloration after the focus plane. This is quite noticeable at f1.8 and starts to disappear once you stop down to f2.8. Again, by f4 it's practically gone. So overall, what do I think of this lens? Well, for £500 I think it's almost a no-brainer. It seems like something that should be in every Canon shooter's camera bag, simply because of its versatility. You can shoot multiple angles of any subject with this lens, everything from wide angle street photography and landscapes to close-up semi-macro images. And that's what I really like about this, the versatility that this gives you. Is it good enough for your high megapixel R5? I'd say just about. It's not going to be the best lens for the system and it's not going to be the sharpest, but I think if you just want a nice fast prime at this kind of focal length, you'd be hard pressed to beat it. And if you're looking to buy into the system or you already own the Canon RP, I think this is a fantastic lens in combination with that camera, given its small lightweight nature, and overall it's a lens that just seems to tick every box. It's small, lightweight, has good image quality, offers a bright maximum aperture for low light subjects, and overall I'd have no hesitation in recommending it for the more budget conscious of you out there. So anyway guys, that's going to do it from me today. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, please do leave it a like and comment below with any questions you have about the lens or the Canon R5 or the system in general. And if you haven't already, please do consider subscribing to the channel. I bring out weekly reviews and tutorial videos. I will be comparing this lens to the Canon 50mm f1.8 that's recently been released, and also the 85 f2, both of which I'm struggling to get hold of currently, but I'm hoping will be back in stock soon for me to either hire or purchase. And until then, I'll look forward to talking to you soon.